It's very on brand for Theo. 1 2 1 2. Hello and welcome to the Blood Red podcast. Keep going.
Say anything. Anything will do.
Hello,
Anything
Ian.
will do.
How are you, Ian?
Intensity is our identity. Who do you reckon the new Everton manager is going to be?
David Moyes.
David Moyes, the 61-year-old.
Sadly, not Mourinho.
Sextagenarian, or whatever it is. Septuagenarian would be 70. I suppose it would be, yeah. Not Mourinho, no.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Blood Red podcast. I am not Joe Rimmer, but I am your host, Keifer MacDonald. I'm today joined by Ian Doyle. Doyle, how's things?
It's okay. It's a very barren landscape here, isn't it? Because someone's not turned up, have they?
Yes, Joe Rimmer, he's sat over there. I can just about see him, but he's not in the podcast room.
He's boycotted it because it's the FA Cup, isn't it? And he doesn't like the FA Cup. So when Liverpool get to the final, he will not be invited to go to Wembley.
He likes the three-handled trophies instead.
He does, yeah, because I'm not sure why he's got three handles. I suppose he's from near enough Runcorn, so they have three hands there, apparently. That's what I get told. I don't believe it, though. Anyway, go on.
Anyway, moving swiftly on, before we get into today's episode, a shout out to our sponsors, NordVPN. To get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to NordVPN/BloodRed. Our link will also give you 4 months extra on a 2-year plan even. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee, and the link can be found in the podcast and YouTube episode description box. Ian, we'll get straight on. Ian, that was very formal, wasn't it?
No one ever calls me.
Yeah. We'll get straight into it. Liverpool, busy week for them, which means a busy week for you. You were down in London on Wednesday night. Liverpool lost to Tottenham in the first leg of the Carabao Cup semi-final. Talk us through what happened.
Well, it wasn't. I mean, right. Well, anyone who thought Liverpool were going to win something like 6-3 is obviously, that's just nonsense. It's a bit different to a Premier League game. It's a cup semi-final, and for Tottenham, who don't win very much, it's a massive game for them. And although they had obviously had quite a few players injured, or Tottenham that is, or suspended, and then they had the incident obviously with Bentancur in the first few minutes. Thankfully, it looks like he's going to be okay. Liverpool just never really got going, I didn't think. I know Slot spoke today and he said that he thought the performance was better than against Manchester United, which I suppose it was. And that he saw quite a lot in the last 70 minutes that he was happy with. I don't know, I never thought they were ever going to score. But then is it one of those ones where, they had a new goalkeeper, they had another makeshift defence, they had an awful lot to play for, and Liverpool, it certainly wasn't their biggest game this week. It would have been Tottenham's biggest game this week. And Liverpool coming off the back of that 2-2 draw with United, I think it's the first kind of question mark open. It's the first time they've played 2 games in a row and not won under Slot. But, they were never going to keep on winning forever. And if you are going to lose a game, as Slot said himself after the game, make sure it's by 1 goal in the first leg of a 2-legged game, and you've got the second leg is at home. Don't want to be Mr. Misery, but the 3 times that Liverpool have lost a first leg in a League Cup semi-final 1-0, they've never got through. But when they have lost 2-1, they got through both times. So I'm not sure what that tells us. Perhaps they should have conceded another one.
Yeah, not a lot.
But no, overall, I thought the performance was a bit iffy. Obviously, they made a few changes. You could tell certainly in the first 20-25 minutes that Bradley in particular hadn't played for ages. Quansah never really got a chance to get going because he was unwell.
Tsimikas as well was a bit rusty, wasn't he, early on?
He was early on, and then, of course, he was made to rust towards the end by being left on the sidelines because he had to get treatment because he got cut in half by Bergvall, who ended up scoring the goal when he should have been sent off. And I think even, Ang Postecoglou, he said afterwards, he said, look, not surprised. If that was me, I'd be furious that ended up the way that it went. And Yeah, it was a strange one, that, because it just looked quite clearly a foul and a yellow card. And even when the referee played on, and it later turned out that he played on because he didn't think it was a foul, which we thought he was just playing advantage at first.
Postecoglou did say in his in his post-match interview to Sky, he said that the referee was right not to send him off because if you play the advantage, you can't be booked if it's a non-cynical foul.
But then it turns out that he never thought it was a foul anyway, apparently. That's what we've been led to believe, which is even more bizarre than what Postecoglou was saying.
I mean, people will say that the first one that he made that he got booked for,
it was a bit. It was
very
harsh.
similar to the Jota one last year, wasn't it? When he got sent off in the Premier League game.
Yeah, but he actually got sent off.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That'll be Liverpool's argument. It doesn't matter what happened because he's already on a yellow card, isn't he? And he should have been sent off.
Yeah, I mean, even allowing for all of that. I mean, it was a good goal that they scored, but of course Liverpool were down to 10, and the person who should have been there covering,
Canati had to come across.
Exactly. Yeah. So there was a lot of stuff that went against them, and it makes you think: are they going to get through here? But overall, again, a bit of a disappointing performance. I thought Núñez did well when he came on. Jota, a lot less so. Bear in mind that was his first start since he got injured, basically. He'd had 6 sub-appearances, but they had scored twice in that time. So, yeah, I think there was just lots of iffy bits and buts. I thought Gravenberch looked a little bit tired at times, and it's funny that Slot mentioned recently, I think it was last week, about McAllister saying he's a player who's benefited from a rest, and of course the rest was his own fault because he got suspended for the Premier League, then the Champions League, and then the game that he was going to get suspended in was the derby, which then didn't happen, so he missed another game, or he was meant to be back for that one and he missed that. Whatever it was, he ended up having a longer break. He was
suspended for Fulham instead, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so he's ended up having a longer break than he would have expected, and I think possibly there's a couple of players like that. You look at Van Dijk. I mean, Van Dijk. I made a comment on. I was going to say, I'm saying Twitter. I'm still saying Twitter. That it seems as though he runs an awful lot these games now. He sent in a lot of running against Tottenham, and again, like against United, it was between him and McAllister for the best player certainly the best Liverpool player on the pitch. So, yeah, I mean, Liverpool were never going to carry on winning all the games and playing brilliantly. There is a slight fear that they have looked a little bit, apart from West Ham, a little bit harsh, I think. I mean, okay, let's put it this way. Their manager was always going to go at some point because they've been so poor. But why did they sack him after they'd lost to the team that's top of the league and then lost to the champions?
I suppose it's because they wouldn't want to bring in a new manager
I suppose you're probably right. Yeah, but that's a bit hard. Again, that's just...
I mean, Everton did that, I remember, with Marcus Silva a few years ago, didn't they?
That's the bizarre thing about football, isn't it? You know, I mean, look at what happened at Everton yesterday. You know, like there's a game coming up. They allow Sean Dyche to, do his press conference, train with the players, and then just before the game go, oh well, go on, bye. So yeah, it's one of those things, but that's obviously not going to happen at Liverpool. Not anytime soon. But they have left themselves a little bit of work to do in that semi-final, and more worrying is that they conceded another goal, and that's something that's kind of been creeping into the play over the last 2 months.
Yeah, absolutely. As you say, the first defeat for Liverpool in 24 games since the 1-0 defeat against Nottingham Forest at Anfield. Is
that the longest unbeaten run since when? I can't remember when. In all competitions, I think it was 1989 or something like that. I don't know for sure.
I mean, it's been a very long time.
I may have just made that up. But
I mean, there's been a lot of Blood Red podcasts between now and the last time Liverpool lost. But as you say, because of the nature of that, it's always kind of going to be scrutinised, isn't it, over dissected and whatnot. One thing that I saw quite a lot on social media, and probably isn't a great forum to kind of see what people thinking and maybe rational, but I saw a lot of people saying about team selection, especially with the game coming up at the weekend. Obviously, he made 4 changes. Trent dropped out. Obviously, Canati dropped out, but obviously was back in because Kwanzaa had to go off quite early on. Robbo and Diaz as well. I mean, do you think he should have gone a bit stronger, or was that team that you saw on the night more than strong enough, kind of thing?
That team was stronger than I thought they would have put out. Way stronger.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone can complain about team selection because, just mentioned before, Tottenham were nowhere near full strength, but that wasn't through choice. That was through design. There's not much they could have done about it. I think Liverpool had a shot cleared off. Well, they had a shot cleared off the line through Trent. Núñez had a header saved and had another improvised effort saved.
Quite late on.
Yeah. And there was 1 or 2 other openings. So they had enough chances to score a goal. And I know Tottenham had a goal disallowed. And there was the incident, obviously, when Alisson decided to go sleep twice inside 5 seconds. Which, to be fair, not so much that he made the mistake, but that had been coming by Liverpool just messing about a little bit at the back. Yeah. I thought Tottenham pressed them quite well, but what Liverpool then didn't do is play through the midfield because, as I mentioned before, Gravenberch probably needs a bit of a rest. And Curtis Jones has had a couple of games where he's just been nowhere near the level that he set earlier in the season. He's given himself those own standards. So when he doesn't reach them, people are obviously going to talk because they know how good he can be. So Yeah, and then you add in Jota not having a particularly great game. Salah didn't do a lot in terms of his final end product, I don't think. A bit better second half. And Gakpo, I was surprised he went off, actually. I thought Gakpo had done well, but again, this comes down to the fact that they made those 3 subs, wasn't it, on the hour, and they definitely would have been prepared ones, like, you're playing this for long, now get off and we'll put somebody else on.
You talk about those 3 subs. I thought Liverpool, for 10 or 15 minutes after that, they really did give it a good go. As you say, Trent had that one cleared off the line, didn't he? Nunes had a couple of chances. So on another day, I think Slot alluded to it in his press conference earlier, it could have been, 3-1, 4-1, whatever, 3-0, 4-0.
It should really have been 0-0, shouldn't it?
But, I mean, if that was the case, you won't be looking at the performance and dissecting it as we are now. That's something that's...
I think you wouldn't even be looking at it that much if they hadn't played so poorly against Manchester United. You just go, oh, this happens,
First
we'll turn
leg
it around in a second.
home.
Exactly, yeah. It's never going to be an easy game. It's just that in the context of that United thing, and I wrote something that's gone online today, and that Liverpool traditionally, certainly in the last 10-15 years, January's not been great for them. I think they've only won, in terms of the first game of the new year, I think they've only won 3 of the last 11 now after the draw with United. So none of this is particularly new, but it is new for Slot. It's the first time he's had to deal with the hectic festive schedule to trade.
They get a break in Holland, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. So it's one thing to get through that, but then you don't get a break in January like you have done the last couple of years, I suspect. Liverpool playing 8 games in January. And you've got 2 Champions League games, you've got the League Cup game, they've got this FA Cup game, and then they've got 4 league games. So they're all important. In fact, again, we'll come on to it in a bit. You'd probably argue that the Accrington Stanley one is the least important, but that's only because of the opposition. If Liverpool are playing Everton or Arsenal like they were last year, I'm pretty sure that'll be a big game again. So, yeah, I think it's a matter of Slot learning how we can rotate players, how we can rest them. Fortunately for him is that there's a lot of players now back. There's only Joe Gomez technically out with an injury. But as we saw with Bradley, as we saw with Simicast, as we saw a little extent with Konate, as I suspect we're going to see with Harvey Elliott, as we'll certainly see with Chiesa, which we haven't really seen with Endo, is that when these players don't play for a while, it takes them a while to get up to speed. And so games like that Tottenham game, like this Accrington game coming up, I would imagine one of the remaining 2 Champions League games, and if they get through possibly the FA Cup 4th round, are going to be games where players are given these minutes, because once January's out the way, suddenly Champions League will be back soon, and then you're getting into the nitty-gritty of the Premier League season.
Absolutely, and that's one of the questions we've kind of got here from Steve Payne. So we are live on YouTube, so any questions you do want to ask Doyle, do put them in the comments.
Yeah, ask Keifer as well. Come on, he's here now.
Let's get the best haircut in Liverpool.
At least ask him. At least ask him.
It says, where are we looking? He asks, why is Mo Salah rarely substituted, even to give some game time to Chiesa recently? I realise either Mo's been taken off, but during a long and intense season, he would surely benefit from playing less in the long run and should be treated in the same way as other players. Elliott is now fit, Chiesa is on the bench, so presumably fit to go. I mean, what's your take on that?
I think we saw with Salah with Jurgen Klopp is that he didn't really like subbing him because he could always do something in a game. Salah's a bit of an exception because he keeps him. I mean, Slot mentioned this at the press conference today. He's down at the AXA and he was talking about it, and he said that Mo is always fit and he's fitter than anyone else. Basically, looks after himself better than anyone else. It's no coincidence that he's always available, apart from when he had that injury, didn't he, last year? And that was so unusual because it was so unexpected and it's very much out of character and there wasn't much he could really do about it. But this season, we've seen the form he's in. I think the game against Tottenham was like the 5th or maybe 6th. I think it's the 5th actually, where he didn't contribute a goal or an assist, which is just ridiculous, really, when he's played about 27, 28 times this season. So, yeah, the reason Salah plays all the time is because he's the best player. And why wouldn't you play him? And I understand the question about resting and such, but he's never, ever, ever seemed somebody who ever needs a breather. Yeah. That's the thing. He got the injury, but that was an injury. And he didn't properly get over it first time round.
Rushed him back,
yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't even think they rushed him back. I just think they brought him back when he thought he was ready, and he wasn't, because he's just not used to being injured. Because he's just not used to being injured. Exactly, and because he's not used to being injured. So if he's fit, almost all the time he's going to play. I think even in the League Cup this year, he's come off the bench, hasn't he? Some of the games.
Yeah. Well, that was my next thing. Is Salah's featured in 28 of the 29 games in all competitions this season.
Is the only one Southampton away that he's not played in?
I would imagine so. I'm not got it off the top of my head.
I think that's right. Yeah.
he started 26 out of the 29 games. That's joint highest with Salah, well, obviously himself, Gravenberch and Van Dijk. Obviously, Salah, as you said, a bit of an exception. Is it a worry in terms of the other two then, in terms of Van Dijk and Gravenberch, the amount that they've played?
Well, Van Dijk, no, except for, as I've just mentioned, it just seems to be doing a lot of running around. Gravenberch a bit different again. I just mentioned him before. I think he does need a bit of a rest. I haven't even researched this, but when was the last time he played this many minutes in a season? He certainly would never have played this many at this time in a season, but just overall, it's probably back to his Ajax days, isn't it, that he'd have played this often.
But even so, he would have been a young lad, and would they have played him that much?
Well, I mean, it's not like he's 50.
No, but I mean,
I know
he was coming
he's
through
saying,
kind of thing, you know. And obviously at Bayern Munich, he didn't get the game time, but I have thought in recent weeks he has looked a bit leggy. And
I think that's possibly contributed a little bit to Liverpool
having less control on games.
And also defensively, I think possibly, and this happens to all the teams, I think they've got a little bit carried away with the fact they've been scoring some goals. And you look at Salah, has he been tracking back as much? I don't know. Is he expected to? Is he being asked? As Gravenberch, if he's not quite 100%, is he able to fill the gaps in front of Trent? McAllister the same on the other side. And I think certainly the last two games they've missed the energy of Szoboszlai, who, I think this season he's kind of proven his worth. He's shown. It's
been a bit of a roller coaster season for him, hasn't it? Because early doors, I was a bit critical of him in terms of, I think what he did off the ball was brilliant, but maybe wanted a bit more on the ball. It feels like that time.
It was a matter of him getting used to that position, wasn't he?
And Southampton away felt like in the Premier League felt like a bit of a turning point. He got the goal, didn't he? And he kind of built on from that and kind of put all those performances together. At Tottenham a few weeks ago in the league game, he was brilliant. Was man of the match by a country mile. Probably his best display in a Liverpool shirt, wasn't it? And they've just lacked that intensity.
Yeah, and I say the good thing, as somebody who wasn't particularly well before Christmas, you wouldn't want that, but it's not an injury, and you think he'd be able to get over it.
And you talk about McAllister having that, break a few weeks ago. Maybe that will serve Szoboszlai in the same way, won't it? It's a long season.
And the same, that's why I'm thinking Gravenberch. I was a little bit surprised he played against Tottenham, because he definitely won't be playing against Accrington, that's for sure. And I think they just need to keep an eye on him, because as much as I like Endo, and we saw against Tottenham, he came on, did a very good job at centre-back, then did a decent job in central midfield. Slot just really isn't having him, as it were, in that position, which is a bit of a shame. But he's the manager. They've won 20 odd games out of 20. They've only lost the 2 games, so he seems to know what he's doing.
I think he's just very limited on the ball. I remember when he started against West Ham late September in the first round of Liverpool's first participation in the League Cup, and he was great at doing all the stuff, winning the ball back, the duels and stuff. But kind of when it got at the feet, shifting it was shifting it quickly.
The funny thing about that is that when you then, if you spoke to, because I'm sure you do all the time, Pep Guardiola. When Liverpool drew 1-1 with City last March, and it was Endo and McAllister, he made a point of pointing out that the midfield at Liverpool's changed because those two were just passing the way around Man City's players in midfield. Yeah. So it's not as if he can't play football.
And even the Carabao Cup final a few weeks before that, when they had Caicedo and Fernandes and stuff.
So I think he's definitely got it in it. I think it's probably not quite as obvious, and I think he's a player who does need a bit of rhythm. But the reality is he's 31, coming up to 32 years of age. Gravenberch is in his early 20s. If you're going to build a team around somebody, you're building it around Gravenberch, and Slot made that decision very, very early on. But I think we're now reaching a point where let Endo play a couple of games, certainly Premier League games. I wouldn't be averse to seeing him starting.
Ipswich next.
I was thinking more Brentford. Yeah. And even if things aren't going to plan, if he comes on like he did against Tottenham, he can do a job against Forest. So I think, and he'll certainly play again like a few others. One of the Champions League games towards the end of the month. So, yeah, I think
shown. There was that cameo against Palace late October, wasn't there? Came on for the final 10 or 15 minutes.
He's kind of turned into Milner, hasn't he? He comes on and towards the end, falls over, wins a throw-in, wins a free kick, and
the away end roars, and that's it. Yeah,
I think people, it's like I have this argument with my dad, funnily enough, and he goes, about fouling. It's like fouling is part of the game. Yeah. Fouling is part of the game. I'm not saying go around kicking people and stuff like that. Exactly, yeah. But to know when to foul and when not to foul, that's a talent in itself, which sounds totally awful now that I've said it out loud. But it is. Yeah. It is. And the best teams have a bit of that about them. And I think Endo, certainly in the second half of this season, can bring a little bit of that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Just to kind of finish off on that Spurs game in midweek, Trent Alexander-Arnold, it's been a difficult kind of couple of weeks for him, dating back to New Year's Eve, the approach from Madrid and kind of all the noise that surrounded that. He had the difficult game against Man United, didn't start on Wednesday night. First of all, was it the right decision to kind of put him out of the limelight? And also, I don't know if people would have heard it on telly, but there was a good reception from the Liverpool fans when he came on, wasn't there? Which I think Slot alluded to in one of his press conferences, didn't he?
I mean, I wouldn't have played him anyway because he probably needs a little bit of a rest. I mean, the fact that he was so poor against United probably made Slot's mind up for him. But yeah, when Trent came on, I was thinking about this. I gave him a 6 in the ratings, not because I just thought he did okay. You know what I mean? But he probably deserved a 7, I think, because he did a bit better than.
There's a few nice passes, wasn't there?
Yeah, there's a few nice passes, but he was on the far end from where we were sat, so we couldn't see him properly. And obviously,
by
then I'm doing a lot of typing, so I didn't really have a chance to see it properly. He had the shot cleared off.
So what you're saying is your ratings aren't accurate?
No, I'm saying my ratings are an accurate representation of what I've seen. There you go. So, and also, come on, we have to file them on the whistle. You don't get much time to think about it. So now and again, I'll have a think back and go, yeah, possibly. Yeah, anyway. So yeah, probably worth a 7. Yeah, he did well when he came on. Yeah, you mentioned then when he hadn't even touched the ball. He hadn't even got across to his position on the other side of the pitch when the crowd, the away end, were already chanting his name. Did it a couple of other times, didn't he, during the time Trent was on. So that was a little bit of a message to him that, how can I put this? That the people who invest most in watching the team, whether that be time or money, are the ones who appreciate him more than perhaps.
And they're the ones he's going to hear, aren't they? You know, he's not going to hear the social media nonsense that kind of goes on.
Anyone can type nonsense about any team. Like, I just annoy Arsenal now and again.
Beat me to it.
So I've gone off Tottenham now, onto Arsenal. Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was important. And just to, I mean, you weren't on the podcast last Friday, but just to touch on the Trent situation, you know, in general. I mean, I think it's really difficult to call, isn't it, at this moment in time? But how do you see that going, and what do you make of kind of the bid or the approach that came from Madrid just before January the 1st?
Well, as everybody knows, I'm a big fan of Real Madrid.
The Super League advocates.
The European Super League advocates, yeah. They a club that have rare sense of entitlement, yeah. Ever since the Franco days. Go and look it up, by the way. We can't really get into that now. But to be honest, Trent's going there, isn't he? I think Trent's going there, and I think
he's had enough opportunity to say if he was staying, he would have said it.
Yeah, and also he's had it. But then again, if you look at it the other way, it would be a lot better for him if he actually if he knows he's going, to come out and just say it, because I think people will go, well, at least you've told us now.
I think he's scared of what might come if he says that.
Well, again, that is a bit of a worry, because then that will. If that's the case and you're correct, that will play on his mind during the second half of the season, which is why you might have a bad week or two if you come out and say something now, but at least it's out the way.
Yeah.
But then again, that's assuming that he's made his mind up, because we don't know. Everything points to the fact that he still doesn't know. Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, he's quite clearly got an offer from Real Madrid to go and sign there at the end of the season. Quite clearly, even though we can't say that. We can't prove it anyway. But we know he's got an offer from Liverpool. So it's up to him what he wants to do, and I just don't think he's made his mind up yet, and that's fine. If he hasn't made his mind up, he hasn't made his mind up. He doesn't have to. Yeah. He could technically leave it till right at the end of the season and then make his mind up, but for his own sanity, I suspect he probably wants to sort it before that.
I do feel he's playing with fire a bit. I think, you know, I put something out on Twitter the other day that maybe he's trying to kind of appease both sides of, you know, Real Madrid and Liverpool, and I just don't think you can do that. And
will he never be able to do it, will he?
No, and I think that silence needs to... I think it's all well and good at the start of the season when you've got a new manager and whatnot, but at some point you need to kind of come out, and the silence says an awful lot at the minute, doesn't it? And I think you need to kind of come out and address it.
Well, what's interesting is that until you asked me then, nobody was talking about it for a couple of days, because he didn't... He
played well.
He did reasonably well, so no one's talking about it. It's only when he has a bad game that people will talk, and he's only had very rare bad games for Liverpool this season, so... In fact, last season as well, so there you go.
And Saturday, you suspect he won't be in the 11 for that. You'd imagine it'll be Conor Bradley straight in.
No, we'll get onto the team, won't we, a little bit later on, but I'd be surprised if Trent plays. But what I would say, if Trent does play, I don't think Van Dijk plays, and Trent would be the captain, which would be a nice little touch, I think.
Yeah, huge statement. True colours become clear. And
the vice captain becomes, yeah.
Just on the game then at the weekend against Accrington Stanley, Slot touched on it in his press conference earlier. He said it's one of the first times that he's gone into a cup tie as favourites in Holland. He said that he didn't always have favourable draws against amateur sides.
As manager,
as manager, of course. It feels like this is a nice draw for Liverpool over the last couple of years. I'm sure you might have told me a stat this time last year when they played Arsenal, but over the League Cup draws and FA Cup draws. They've played so many Premier League
I think
teams.
it was like something. I can't remember the numbers, but in terms of the third, fourth, and fifth rounds, because obviously when you get to the quarterfinals, semi-finals, and finals of these competitions, you're going to be playing somebody good.
Yeah.
But it's a lot more random in the third and fourth round in particular. Liverpool have drawn a ridiculous amount of Premier League teams. I think in the FA Cup third round, they had Arsenal, they had Everton twice, they've had Wolves twice, and this is in the last 10 years when Wolves were in the Premier League. In fact,
they had Villa, didn't they?
They had Wolves 3 times, thinking about it, yeah. They had Villa as well, although that was Villa's kids. But they didn't know that at the time the draw was made. So, yeah, it has been a little unusual. So to get a team like Accrington Stanley at home, you would think that Liverpool would win. You'd like to hope so. I suspect even Accrington Stanley suspect Liverpool are probably going to win this one. But it's interesting that they've been struggling at the bottom of League Two, and then the last couple of games they've suddenly started thinking, oh, hang on, there's a chance of us playing against Liverpool here, and they've won the last 2 games, and everybody's suddenly become fit, and they're all clear of suspension, this, that, and the other. So, yeah, I think, and there's a lot of Scousers.
There's a few nice stories heading into that one. There's Josh Woods, who is a Liverpool fan, goes to a lot of the games, and he's kind of come through a bit of a late bloomer in terms of going through the academy system and whatnot. He's found himself at Accrington Stanley via non-leaders. Liam Coyle as well, that Liverpool fans might be familiar with, was Gerrard's first captain in the under-18s about, God, when was that, 7-8 years ago now. Someone I'm sure you watch a lot of times at the academy, Doyle. I mean, for those kind of players, it'll be nice to kind of realise their dream. They will have played at Anfield before, maybe with the under-21s, 18s, whatever, but to play in front of a sellout crowd will be a special moment, won't it?
It will be. I think the manager's a blue as well, isn't he?
Yes.
And he used to be a coach at Trent, I believe.
Yeah.
So this is all tying up nicely, isn't it? Yeah.
The magic of the FA Cup.
Exactly. The magic of the FA Cup, which is superior to the League Cup. I think
Rimmer.
we're all... No, well, I think we're all in agreement on that. Are we in agreement over that? Yeah, thumbs up there from our producer, yeah. The Everton fan, obviously Everton have never won the League Cup, so he's bound to say that. So yeah, who beat Everton when they got to the? Oh yeah, sorry. What was the question?
I can't remember.
Accrington Stanley, it's a big game for them. In terms of the draw, I think Liverpool would do one of these, but it's only as easy as to make it.
I mean, remember
Havant and Waterlooville, and they were a non-league team, and they went 1-0, 1-0 and 2-1. Certainly went 2-1 up before they lost 5-2. And I think Slot himself said this in the press conference today. If Liverpool can compete in terms of the intensity for the first 25 to 30 minutes, there's every chance Accrington will just blow themselves out after that, because for them, this will almost all of their players, not all of them, but almost all of their players, will be the biggest game they'll have played in their careers, and they'll be desperate to impress. Whereas for Liverpool players,
it's easy to take your eye off the ball, isn't it?
Quite a lot of them will be wanting to impress, because I suspect there'll be quite a few fringe players. So, which we'll get onto that, but it's a bit different because they won't want to just waste the first 30 minutes, will they? They want to get a full 90 under the belt.
Absolutely. I mean, I think Klopp even?
Slot.
January the 10th.
Jurgen's gone now.
I know.
He's gone. You've got to let it go.
I was speaking with my Red Bull hat on. Slot compared it, I think, to a Champions League final in terms of...
Yeah, but for
Stanley, which obviously...
I can give you a really, really boring statistic or fact about Accrington. They've only played Liverpool once, which was in 1956 in the FA Cup third round.
And they lost.
Accrington lost 2-0. But the game's at Anfield, but Liverpool had to wear gold shirts and white shorts and red and white socks because Accrington's kit clashed with Liverpool's home kit. So Liverpool had to wear this kit that they've never worn before and never worn since.
Well,
there you go.
They might wear it tomorrow.
And I was not alive for that.
No, I was just about to say, was that... Were you still on the Echo desk?
You had to wait another 20 years before my arrival.
In terms of some of the players who could feature then, Doyle, I mean, Harvey Elliott, he's someone I was surprised didn't feature the other night at Tottenham. He obviously played in the last round at Southampton, got a goal. He's obviously been limited this season because of injuries. He had a really strong pre-season, but he's not really had the chances in recent weeks to build on that performance after Southampton. But you'd imagine he'd be a shoe in tomorrow, wouldn't he, right from the off?
Everton also lost to Aston Villa in the League Cup final. Just thought I'd just point that out. It's not just to Liverpool. No, it was the final. It was went to 3 games. Anyway.
Sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to, if for all
switching
the
back from Royal Blue.
All the fans listening to this podcast.
Harvey Elliott.
Me Everton hat, yeah. Harvey Elliott, yes. Now, again, Slot got asked about him today, and he said he's been a bit unlucky because whenever Liverpool have won games, with the exception of West Ham, mostly it's been like 1 goal or a second goal difference towards the end, and he's been quite reluctant to bring certain players on at certain too early in the game. Not entirely sure I buy into that, because that suggests that Harvey Elliott's not good enough to play for Liverpool's first team, but for a longer period, which I don't believe is true. But that's, he does need more minutes. I'm surprised he's not been playing more, to be honest. So, especially when you consider how well he did during the summer in that number 10 role.
He had a really strong first half of 2024,
Yeah, exactly.
didn't he?
And then he didn't play the first two games. Got off the he didn't play in the first game. Got off the bench in the second.
He only played a couple of minutes, though, didn't he, against Brentford?
And then didn't play the third. And then got injured, and that was that. And it's been difficult for him. I mean, he has played. He came off the bench, I think, last 5 or 6 Premier League games. So he has been getting a little bit of action, but it's not been enough.
No.
And again, like Endo, he's proven he can do it at this level. He's proven that he can do it in this Liverpool team with these players. So I would expect him to be playing a lot more in the second half of the season.
Absolutely. There was some transfer we talk about Harvey Elliott during the week. Brighton and Borussia Dortmund, 2 teams.
Borussia Dortmund? I thought it was Bournemouth.
No, it's Borussia Dortmund, wasn't it? Brighton and Borussia Dortmund.
All the Bs, basically.
Yeah.
We're Barnett in for him as well.
The 2 Bs. Not
Barnsley?
Not Christopher Bees.
No. That's another Everton reference there.
I know.
Yeah. The listeners to the whatever this is called, the Blood Red podcast, will not know who the Royal Blue people are.
No, and no, they shouldn't.
Even though they're our colleagues.
Yeah, Brighton and Borussia Dortmund, 2 teams, supposedly keeping an eye on the situation at Liverpool. I mean, Slot was asked about that today. The same with Liverpool's links for Kvaratskhelia from Napoli. He's basically called
the Georgian.
The Georgian lad with good hair, but not great hair.
Wow.
So basically called it silly season, didn't he, in January?
He said after the West Ham game, he got asked just on the off chance of like any movements in January or anything happening, and he just went, "Well, don't disappoint me. I'll be disappointed if you don't come up with a load of names." Going, and sure enough, that's what's happened. In terms of the Georgian lad, Liverpool obviously have known about him for ages, not least when he played very well when they got battered 4-1 at Napoli the other year. So he's someone they've kept an eye on. But
he fits the opportunistic mould, doesn't he?
Well, the thing is, I don't think they'll be signing him in January. I'd be amazed if they sign him in January because they've got so many players in those positions, so that he's not necessarily needed now. What happens at the end of the season, though? Don't forget, the moment Mohamed Salah's going to be out of contract and he'll have gone. And, Luis Diaz, by all accounts, he was having a bit of a flirt with other teams last summer. Darwin Núñez, what's going to happen with him? Diogo Jota. I'm basically selling the whole of the front line apart from Gakpo here. This Chiesa as well. Yeah, so there's every chance there's going to be some changes in the summer. I'm not saying all them are going. So Liverpool will be on the lookout, and if he's a good player, and if he becomes available, and Liverpool have done all the groundwork in terms of assessing him and seeing where he could fit into the team, why would they not be interested in him?
I suppose the counter to that, maybe him not coming in January, but the counter argument would be that Liverpool pulled the trigger early a few times in recent years when a player they do like has become available, or we saw that with Luis Diaz. Cody Gakpo was another one. I suppose you could put Kvaratskhelia in this one.
The only thing I'd say about that is I would think that if they were going to do that, it would be for a central midfielder rather than a forward.
That was going to be.
You've already got Chiesa, can't get anywhere near the team at the moment, so that does seem a little.
It does seem a bit of an odd that link into Kvaratskhelia there, because he does predominantly play on the left side, whereas you would be looking at Liverpool if you were looking at where to reinforce the forward line. It would be someone who could play Salah's position.
Or he could play as a number 10 as well. I don't know.
But he's not. My point being, he's not a right-sided player, which I think everyone would point to is what Liverpool need at the minute. Because
unless he likes coming in off the right wing onto his left foot. Shots. Think anyone else who's done that?
You stung me there. I didn't really have anything for that. But in terms of other January additions, I mean, would you say Liverpool need a midfielder? Would you say?
Look, I'd be again. We've seen so many times. I'm not going to make an assertion or.
Would you like Liverpool to add a midfielder?
Or say they're not going to sign anybody because they keep on making me look an idiot, and I'm very, very good at doing that myself. So I don't need them to do that. By making Gakpo, was it Gakpo, Diaz, Minamino, Van Dijk was slightly different. There's another one in there, isn't there?
In terms of January editions.
Yeah, there was another one. I can't quite think of it at the moment, but they've done well in the January transfer market when other teams tend not to do particularly great. And if you ask me if they were to sign somebody, in which position should it be? I would definitely say central midfield. Certainly the defensive midfielders positions, because they literally tried to sign Zubimendi last summer. And I'm sure if a player became available of that standard and wanted to come, I suspect they might try and sign him. But again, that's just me covering myself.
It does make sense, though, because as we touched on at the top of the show, Gravenberch, 26 starts from 29 games. I mean, that isn't sustainable, is it, over a 9-month period, over a 52, 53-game season?
Especially as it's something new to him, in terms of this level. I know he played last season.
But to go from 0 to 100
Yeah,
almost.
exactly, yeah. So Yeah, if I was in charge of Liverpool, which thankfully for everybody I'm not, I would be looking to get if they're possible, a central midfielder. I know some people would say centre back as well, but then the problem you'd have is it would have to be a centre back that you were thinking of possibly signing in the summer, because again, I think centre back is going to be a position that we look at, because at the moment Virgil van Dijk's leaving as well. Yeah,
absolutely. We've been flooded with a few questions here. The first one from Barry.
I think we're flooded with a few.
Well, I mean, compared to what we had before,
there's been a trickle. A steady stream.
The first one from Barry McLaughlin. How long do you see contract impasse going for Trent before they have to make a decision for the benefit of the title chase? Definitely.
Who's making the decision? Liverpool can't make a decision.
Well, I think that's what he's saying.
Yeah, it's Trent.
Pull the rug from under his feet.
Well, no, that's never going to happen. If you've got a player who's good enough to play for Real Madrid and he's not being distracted too much, why on earth would you not play him?
I suppose he's saying, do they offer him an ultimatum and just say,
Well, perhaps they already have. That's the thing.
Well, he says it's definitely in his
Sorry,
eyes.
I feel like as though I'm arguing with him through you. So I'm not.
The camera's there.
I'm not arguing. I'm just saying that I think you have to bear in mind it's not just on Liverpool. This is on Trent as well, which is what I said before. He clearly hasn't made his mind up. And if he has made his mind up, as kind of you were suggesting he may have done, he's a little bit not frightened, but he's a little bit wary of coming out with it just at the moment. There will come a time where he'll say either way.
Absolutely. The next one is another comment from Barry, which says no chance Elliott leaves. Him and Szoboszlai are best attacking central midfield players. Jones more likely to be sold.
I don't agree with that last bit, but I agree with the first bit.
What, in terms of being more suited to number 10 role?
No, I'm just saying that Elliott and Szoboszlai, there's no chance either of them are being sold. No, I wouldn't sell Elliott at all. No, I wouldn't sell any. I wouldn't sell any of those three.
No, absolutely. Then chances of leaving this summer is also from Barry. He says Nunes 100%, Chiesa 100%, Diaz 50%, Salah 50%, Jota 30%, Gakpo 0%.
Well, that more or less backs up what I was saying. Although at the moment, again, Salah.
You Barry.
At the moment, you'd probably say Salah is more than 50%. Although, to be honest, I expect Van Dijk and Salah to sign contracts.
Next one from our good friend Barry is
it? Is it only him asking the questions?
Yes, at the minute.
So this flood of questions are basically just from one person.
Well, you can flood your own house. You can flood your own. You can flood a car
Why
box.
would you flood your own house?
Well, I mean, it's been done.
You just leave the taps on for ages and then just forget about it.
I'm sure it's been done.
Yeah. There'll be frozen pipes now. Anyway.
He says, "Does Ali stay beyond the summer?"
Yes, because they're not going to sell loads of goalkeepers. I think Kelleher's going.
One more from Barry before we move on.
Are you Barry?
Hi, Barry. He says, need 5 positions sorted.
Even if he asks another question, just put a different name on it.
All right, okay. This one's from Ian Doyle. He says, need 5 positions sorted. Young left back, left centre back, and a right winger. Oven ready centre defensive midfielder and central striker. I like the term oven ready.
Is that a question or a statement?
It feels like a statement.
It does, yeah.
We're just giving Barry the airtime.
Shall we move on?
We shall. We've got one more. Elliott to Brighton and...
Is this Barry
No,
again?
it's not Barry. It's not. It's Hey Vino. He says, Elliott to Brighton and Belber the other way. What do you say?
No.
That's emphatically shut that one down. Dulu, we'll move on to Saturday's FA Cup game then. Obviously, we've touched on it before. Give me a starting 11.
Oh, I've gone straight in. All right. Okay. I think it'll be reasonably strong for all the reasons that I've said before. The players who need the minutes and have come back from injury, I think they will all play. So you're looking at Kelleher. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah. I think the back four will be Bradley, Quansah, Tsimikas, and probably Konate. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
This is worrying for you. In midfield, Elliott has to play. Endo has to play, and I play Szoboszlai because he's not played the last couple of games, and he trained
on Thursday with the 21s. Sadly, I'd agree with that.
Right, okay, that leaves us with the front three, and Nunes has got to play.
Yeah,
he'll play down the middle, and then Chiesa probably has to play. He's on the right.
Yeah,
and then on the left, you're then left with a decision of whether or not to play Diaz, or is that the position where you go, right, we might try something a bit different and play, I don't know, I've forgotten it. Rio. Rio, Ungamoa.
Yeah.
We're not mentioning Trey and Yori. Tyler Moore has been injured. He's hurt his ankle. We're not mentioning James McConnell. These are all players who could, in and around that team. Is Nallo? Is he somebody they look at centre back? Possibly put him on the bench. So they have got some options. Jayden Downs as well. Who's obviously scored twice in the FA Cup in one game. So Liverpool do have some choices, but
I suppose with the young lads, there may be ones that if it's 2 or 3, they might bring them on. 60,
Slot hasn't
70.
really shown much inclination for giving these youngsters opportunities in this way. And Yoni's a bit different because he's been training regularly with the first team and played with them over in the United States in the summer and played other friendlies. So he knows a lot more about him. But otherwise, yeah, unless you're playing Diaz left wing. Yeah. So it's probably going to be something like that. It would be my guess.
In terms of Saturday, then, I mean, I think Chiesa is going to be the one that kind of everyone's looking at. We've seen a few glimpses here and there, but does this feel like it's now time for his Liverpool to create kind of take off?
Well, it was interesting that Slot got asked about him today, and he kind of laid down a challenge saying, look, we've got another half of the season to come where we've got important games. Let's see what he can do, which is he's had his half season to acclimatise, which I think he probably has now. Now he just needs to get the minutes under the belt to get used to the intensity of it. I mean, hang on, we're talking about an Italy international who played for Juventus and lots of other big teams. He won the Euros, so he's hardly somebody who hasn't played football before. So I think this is one where he's certainly got the talent. Just give him an opportunity, and if he can't do it against Accrington, then that's if he's playing. Yeah. If he can't do it against Accrington, which admittedly we've seen so many of these FA Cup games that they're going to make it really difficult. They're going to put players behind the ball. They might not be averse to booting people up in the air. Not that I'm saying that they're going to do that, but it'd be more
Surely
likely
Coyle will leave one.
Yeah, exactly. They're more likely to do that than Tottenham, although Tottenham could do it and no one would get sent off. It will be interesting to see what he does. No, because I think that once you get past this game, it's like, again, I mentioned before, there's going to be one of the Champions League games in this month, and then depending on who they get the fourth round, there's not going to be many other games where you're thinking, right, let's give these players a chance now, because every game after that is going to be, we need to win this.
I mean, we saw at Southampton, he came on, didn't he?
Came on second half, didn't he?
Yeah, and he looked quite good, didn't he? You know, there was a one chance where did he have one cleared off the line, then there was a cross shot to Jota, but in terms of getting into the right positions and that kind of bit of explosiveness is kind of what we saw, which we didn't see.
That's what he can do, isn't he? Because he's as I said before, he's an Italy international, done this, that, and the other. So none of that's
new to him.
None of that's new. None of that should be in doubt. It's just how he fits into how Liverpool want to play, and as I said, the intensity and whether he can do that over 90 minutes or even 60.
Yeah, no, certainly. Score prediction?
Let's give Accrington a goal. Give him a goal. I think Liverpool win 4-1.
I thought you were going to go 1-0 Accrington.
No,
crying even
I'm like, no. There comes a time where even I'm like, I think Liverpool should win this one comfortably.
Sensible.
But I think there'll be the first half an hour will be quite a lively game, but I think the longer it goes on, you'd fancy Liverpool to score a few.
I'm going to go 3-0 Liverpool. No goal for Accrington.
Oh, he's such a spoiled sport, aren't you?
I know.
Boo hiss to Keifer.
I know. Please do give us thumbs up still. But that's everything for today's podcast. Thank you for listening. I've been Keifer MacDonald. That's been Ian Doyle.